Welcome to the first episode of the 21 Hats Dashboard podcast. Every Monday, Gene Marks and I will have a quick conversation about the issues we think business owners should be monitoring this week. Gene is founder and CEO of the Marks Group, a consulting firm that advises small businesses, especially about their technology needs. He also writes frequently for lots of publications about the issues business owners confront, articles that are informed by his own experiences, as well as those of his clients. Welcome, Gene.
Loren, I am so happy to be here. Great to talk with you.
Great to talk with you.
So good to be doing this instead of our old days on Sirius, you know?
Remember those days? It's been a while. I'm really delighted to be talking to you in this capacity again.
Yes, we have no network censors or anybody holding us back, you know?
That's
we
right.
can just speak freely.
We could screw it up ourselves.
That's right. We're on our own to screw it up.
Let's start this week with the vaccine mandate that President Biden just announced. It applies to businesses with 100 or more employees, but do you think it'll have an impact on smaller businesses?
Yeah, I do. I mean, first of all, let's be clear that, you know, even businesses with more than 100 employees are small businesses. So I want to be clear about that. There's some negatives. There's some big negative stuff about this, but there's also a few positive things as well, which hopefully we'll get to later on in the conversation. But from the negative side, Loren, I mean, when the president issued this, announcement, I got a handful of calls from clients like that evening, wanting to talk about it. And frankly, people were pretty freaking out. I mean,
why? What's the biggest concern?
Well, first of all, let's just make clear on what the rules are. Okay, the president said, "Listen, I'm telling OSHA to issue new rules. They're going to be forthcoming, and if you have more than 100 employees, you are not only going to be either required to show proof of vaccination of your employees, or make them get tested every week to make sure that they're not COVID positive." So here I have these clients that have around 100 employees or more than 100 employees, and they're kind of pulling out their hair right now, Loren. I mean, they're saying to themselves okay, we're waiting for the rules, but how do you define an employee, right? Is it part-time, full-time? Is it hours calculation like they did before? How do you do they get tested? What if an employee can't get tested for whatever reason? Am I breaking any privacy rules? Are my employees, what if an employee says, I refuse to get vaccinated, I refuse to get tested? Does that mean that we have to get, we got to fire that employee? I mean, one client called me the other night. He's got 35 employees in his warehouse. Many of them are Latino. They come from the same community. The community there, not big on getting vaccinated, not big on sharing information with the government. He's like, I can't get rid of these people. It's like they're the base of my whole business. So it's a big headache. And I don't know if whatever the rules that come out, Loren, I mean, I think they're going to create more questions than answer, Well,
you raise a really good point about how exactly you define an employee. And I think that'll be of big interest to lots of businesses, but one would hope that the real rules on that will be clear and that will sort itself out pretty quickly.
You mean as clear as like the Paycheck Protection Program and all the other government?
Yeah, I mean, what could go wrong?
Of course.
I'd like to think that will be set, but you're right.
Let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt for one of the. How about seasonal businesses, right? I mean,
sure.
I've got 150 employees in the summer, but none in the fall, and do I qualify for that? Anyway,
it seems like those are issues that can be dealt with, and let's, until we see the rules, let's put that aside for the moment. It is a bureaucratic issue for sure, but the one big thing that you raise is the testing thing. I mean, that seems like the fallback. If people don't want to get vaccinated, the option of testing everybody on a weekly basis seems doable to me. What's the concern there?
Well, the concern is this. So, you're running a business. You've got 101 employees. Now you've got to have your office manager or your HR manager go around to every single one of those employees, find out if they're vaccinated, get proof of vaccination, then ask them if they haven't gotten vaccinated.
But you only have to do that once. You don't have to do that every week.
You do it once. And then you say, okay, so now I've got a certain number of employees that are not vaccinated, so they've got to get testing. Where are they going to go for testing? When are they going to bring the testing stuff in? How often, is there a certain deadline? fine.
I think the at-home version of the tests qualifies. So, there's a question of who pays for it.
That's exactly was my next thing. So now these employees have to go out and buy, tests every week, or go and pay to get testing, or does the employer have to pay to get the testing as well? And again, what if an employee, doesn't do it for a week, or doesn't show up for, just misses it or refuses to do it? And, it puts people into
the enforcement aspect of it.
Yeah. Into like an unfortunate, enforcement aspect. That's exactly right. So it's just headaches that employers have to be dealing with. And don't get me wrong, everybody gets it about vaccinations, and
not everybody.
It's important. Well, not everybody. That's a good point. But I mean, most of my clients I talk to, they do get it. But it's just another thing on top of them that they have to do that is just going to create a lot of headaches for them. And they're, like I said, and plus again, they're still waiting for the rules on this, and who's going to enforce it.
The enforcement thing seems like a really legitimate issue to me. I mean, the whole with the mask thing, the idea that business owners or people who work for business owners in a restaurant or somewhere have to take it upon themselves to enforce a rule like that, that's nobody goes into business to do that.
You could take the point of view, Loren, is like, listen, this is like a once in every 100-year thing. It is a freaking pandemic, guys. Everybody's got to pitch in and do their thing. If this were World War II, the government would come in and tell you to stop making widgets and make tanks.
And we tried it the other way, and it's clearly not working. I mean, the economy is not where we thought it was going to be, and I think it makes sense to take action now rather than to wait and see it get worse as we head into the fall and winter.
Right. That's exactly right. It's just, again, I think the biggest issue, though, that employers have is, is just, what happens if employees don't do it? The questions that they have to ask also they go against what we've been told for years. I mean, if I interview somebody for a job, I'm not allowed to ask about their health history or whether or not they smoke or if they drink heavily on the weekends. That has nothing to do with the performance of their job. Now, something I have to ask them about whether they're vaccinated or not, it's not consistent, and it opens you up to potential liabilities. On top of that, OSHA, since its existence, it's there to have a safe workplace. So their rules are to make sure that, listen, there should be no puddles on the ground, and the electrical system should be up to speed, and wiring and sprinklers. But OSHA has never been like, no. And by the way, now we're going to have rules about how your employees need to act in their personal lives to be part of a safe workplace. That's like new stuff. And whenever there's new stuff, there's going to be arguments and debates and therefore lawsuits. And employers are going to be in the middle of all of this, and it's tough.
There will definitely be lawsuits. All right. Well, fortunately, the goal of this podcast is to discuss the important issues, not to solve them. So let's move on to our next issue, and that is the recent expansion of access and the increase in the cap of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program of the SBA. Do you think that that expansion and that access of the access and of the cap is going to make a difference for?
Well, I saw in your 21 Hats newsletter today that there was some people have the opinion that it's like you're going to have more chance of winning the lottery than getting that money, and that may or may not be true. But listen, if
it is true that they're opening the window just for the smaller loans initially, I think for about a month.
Right.
And there will be a limit to how much money they have to give out. So that was the point of the lottery.
And it's also true that the program right now is set to expire at the end of the year, which is quickly coming up. So that's going to have to be extended as well to get all the money out there. But let's put all that aside. Let's assume the government actually works. And the rules, and again, this is a good part of what the president said in his, in his steps to fight COVID, is to provide more capital for small businesses. Now, the economic injury disaster loans are loans that really any business can get as long as they've been impacted by COVID. The rules are fairly gray about how you define being impacted. Traditionally, it's been you have to be in a disaster area declared by the government, and the entire country is a disaster area still because of the pandemic. So assuming that you're eligible for a loan now, you can now get up to $2 million of a loan, which is it has been expanded. That's good. But let me tell you what's really good. They changed the rules. You can now use the proceeds of that loan to pay down other debt. So just think of it, Loren, like say you've got other debt, and maybe the interest rate is higher. This loan is a 3.75% interest rate for 30 years fixed. So if you have, other debt that's around that amount, you probably don't have a 30-year fixed loan at that amount if you've got working capital and equipment loans out there. Now you've got the ability to get this economic injury disaster loan, pay off those other loans, fix your rate at 3.75%, which is close to market rates now. And let me tell you, those rates are going to be going up in the future, seeing how inflation is going. I think it's a huge bonus for a lot of business owners. I've been telling my clients, jump on this now, refinance your debt, fix it for 30 years, take advantage of these EIDLs. It's a real plus.
I think the key point there is the jump on it now advice.
You got to get going now because people are worried that the money is going to run out. And as a lot of people, as you know, in the restaurant industry found, if you don't get in line early, you're too late to the game. So jump on it now. You
mentioned inflation. I know from previous conversations. I'm sorry. I moved to the wrong question. Let me back up a second.
It's okay.
Let's talk about inflation. I talk to business owners a lot, and my sense is that they tend to worry about inflation even when there's nothing to worry about. But right now, there's something to worry about. You wrote recently about strategies that business can use to mitigate against inflation. Can you give us one or two good ones?
Yeah, actually, I want to first of all say that this is a piece I wrote for the Philly Inquirer. I mean, I write there every week, and this one has been like top of mind and for a lot of business owners. I mean, Loren, if you really want to know what's going on with inflation, you ignore what the media is telling you about the inflation rate. Sorry, but the inflation rate, the consumer price index is like 5% or whatever. You go to the St. Louis Federal Reserve site. They have a database called FRED, and you can I forget what that stands for, but you can search on it for PPI, Producer Price Index, and you can get producer price indexes of all sorts of core things that make up the economy. And just to give you an example, Loren, all right, like the producer price index, the inflation rate for plastics and resins, which are in pretty much everything, right, has gone up 46% in this past year. And packaging film have gone up 30% in this past year. Iron and steel prices are up 90% in this past year. Plywood is up 102%, and chemicals are up 45%. Now, I have just named like 4 or 5 key ingredients in just about everything that's made or produced in this country, and they've all gone up way more than the 5.4% consumer price index.
But isn't the key issue determining whether that's a long-term situation or something short-term caused by the pandemic and the supply chain issues that is likely to abate?
Great question to ask 6 months ago when it seemed like it was short-term, and yet it continues and continues and continues. And obviously, we're reading about all the supply chain issues that continue on with all the ships backed up off the West Coast and the price of containers going up now 500%. This is a problem that's going to linger for another 6 to 12 months. So yeah, it's a long-term issue. And when you look at those prices and where they are, I don't see how overall general prices of stuff are going to remain at 5% range when we've got these kinds of increases going on. Wages themselves, by the way, have only gone up about 4%. There's no way that people are going to be able to keep up with those kinds of core material increases.
So what can a business owner do?
Well, there's a few different things. First of all, obviously, you have got to be super flexible with your pricing. You've got to be communicating with your customers. We all know that. You have to be able to raise your prices. That's number one. And obviously have good communication with your suppliers and all that. We realize that. Here's the biggest piece of advice that I have for our clients: buy. Don't buy GameStop. Don't buy cryptocurrency. That's not what you know. It's not what you do. Buy the core materials for your business now. Warehouse it if you have to, because inflation is going to continue to be pervasive for the next 6 to 12 months. And every smart client I know right now, they're snapping up materials where they can because they know the price increase are coming on the way. So they're doing that. Now, you might be like, hey, we don't really have enough capital to buy. We need some help. Well, there's those economic injury disaster loans that we just talked about. And also, the SBA has got great programs. The it was Section 7A and 504 microloan programs. You can borrow up to $5 million from them at market rates, guaranteed by the government. So the banks are willing to go out there. That will help you buy inventory and working capital, even equipment as well. Very, very important. And finally, listen, inflation is a big cost of materials and labor. So you have two choices. You can either raise prices or you've got to reduce expenses elsewhere. So the second thing that people are doing to reduce expenses is they are investing in technology. And Loren, when we talk about in the weeks to come, I want to give you just example of how small businesses are investing in technologies, robotics and manufacturing technologies that are frankly replacing workers. And that's what they're doing to control their overhead in light of this inflationary period.
We are going to talk about that in weeks to come. Next item today. I know from previous conversations, you've been paying attention to ransomware attacks for a long time. Do you think and there's never been more than there are right now, do you think there'd be fewer ransomware attacks if ransomware payments were illegal?
I don't know how that gets enforced. Do I feel that there will be fewer attacks because of it? There may be, but already I'm hearing that ransomware makers themselves are coming up with devious new ways to take advantage of the people that they attack. Listen. What's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You get shut down because of a ransomware attack, and then you're a business. Say you're a business owner, so you either have to pay the people to get your files unlocked so you can actually get back to business, or if you do pay the people, you're going to go to jail or be subject to fines from the government. I don't know what people will do. So I can't really tell you if I think it's going to reduce, the level of ransomware attacks. All I can tell you, Loren, is that over the period that I've been alive, those hackers, all those guys from Russia and Ukraine and all that, they are way smarter than we are. They'll figure out some other way to get their money.
Are there ways to protect yourself? Have you done anything with your company?
Well, first of all, the number way to protect yourself, number one way that people still don't get the message about this is to upgrade your freaking operating systems. I mean, if you're a Windows user or you're a Mac user, or even if you're running Android, Google, Microsoft, Apple, they're pushing updates on you all the time. And a lot of people hate to upgrade their Windows system. And believe me, given Microsoft's history, I understand where they're coming from. But the best thing you can do is to keep your operating systems as current as possible, because the ransomware makers, they're out there fishing for older, operating systems that they can encroach because they're easy to get into. And if you're running the most current operating systems of iOS or Windows 10 or Windows 11, it's not that they're infallible. It's just that the hackers that are out there don't want to waste time dealing with you because there's too many other low fruit to pick where they can invade and do their dirty work. So keep your operating systems up to date. And by the way, that's a cost now because you've got a lot of people working from home and you've got a lot of people spread out, which basically means you have to do something with an IT firm to ensure that they are providing some kind of a service where they're checking in on all your employees and making sure that they're running the most recent operating system. So that's what we're telling our clients to do. I mean, there's other steps you can take, Loren, but that's the number one thing you got to make sure you're doing this year.
Last item of the day. My sense is that despite the last 18 months, most business owners are really not coming around to loving having a remote workforce. I happen to know you've had one for years.
Yeah.
You happy with it?
Yes and no. I mean, I made the joke to you before that my company I have 10 employees still. We waver between 10 and 12. And so we're growing, Loren. But I have people that have worked for me for a decade that I haven't even met. I have one woman who works for me in Colorado Springs, literally worked for me for 10 years. I've never met her face to face. That is not a good thing. I mean, Microsoft just announced this week that they're going to put off bringing people back to work indefinitely. That's going to hurt their innovation and their creativity. That will have an impact.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. We ran an item recently in the morning report based on research that suggests that those chance encounters that people talk about at the water cooler where all that innovation and creativity happens, that's real, but only to a point. The research suggested, as this article recounted it, that it's important to meet, to get to know each other. But once you do, a lot of that can happen over the internet through Zoom or something like that. What do you think?
I think it's balance. And I can tell you this much. Up until COVID, first of all, let me tell you this much. Let me tell you this, Loren. The millennials were right. Okay, let's just agree on this, all right?
About what?
They were right. I mean, before COVID, the millennials were yelling and screaming at our older guys. We want to work from home. We want to be more, we want to be more mobile. We want to be more independent. And all of us older people were like, oh, shut up, come into the office, get to work, it's whatever. Yeah. Then COVID happens. Everybody gets sent home. And everybody still gets their jobs done, right? The cloud is fine. There's, little
pretty
security.
amazing, huh?
Right. It worked. So once again, the millennials are right. And when we come out of this, what we've realized is that before COVID, you had these essential, HR benefits. Every business had to have health insurance and they had to have, retirement plans. That was like the big two that people asked for. Now to add to that, the third required benefit is there's got to be a work from home policy. Now, not all your employees can do it, but for those that can do it, they're going to expect it. So when you're going out there and you're looking to hire people, man, I mean, you're going to be asked, what is your work from home policy? It is a legit question to be asked, and you have got to have a policy. And what I've seen most of my clients, and by the way, the big companies like Google, Microsoft, they're keeping their employees home, whatever. I drive around Philly, man, like to my clients, the corporate parking lots, the industrial parks, the parking lots, they're filled. People are coming in the office. I mean, they're all out there working. I see them. I'm in traffic with them every day. But the smart clients I know, though, are giving more leeway to their employees to take a day or two every week, and they can work from home as long as they come into the office for 3 days a week. It's a balance. You know what I mean?
Do you feel you've been able to maintain the creativity aspect of what you do with your remote workforce?
Not at all.
Really?
Not at all. No,
Really?
I mean, I think we just lose a lot. We're all working on our own islands. We've been using GoToMeeting for years, and it's fine and all that, but it's not impromptu. Do you know what I mean? It's not spontaneous. And so we have our meetings, we do our things, but I just know, Loren, that if we actually had an office and people came to the office, because that's why I closed my office, because nobody was coming in. But if I had an office where people were actually in the office, you'd be talking about your clients. You'd be talking about other things, and stuff comes up like, oh yeah, that could really work at this client. Thanks for mentioning that. We don't have any of that. We just have no culture in our company. Low overhead, but also no culture.
Last question. There are employers using what's called tattleware software to monitor their remote employees. Any thoughts on that?
What a bunch of baloney. Can I use profanity on this website? Because I feel like...
Go for it.
It's a bunch of bullshit. I mean...
It's a bad idea, or the software doesn't work, or how is it?
No, it's a bad idea. I mean, what are these, your employees are children or something?
Right.
I mean, God, give them some respect, right? I mean, I don't care what my employees are doing at home as long as they're getting their work done. So if they're doing it, standing naked in front of their computer, or they're doing it 3 a.m. or whatever, I don't care. So I'm not, who's got the time to, did you do that with your kids with Facebook? I mean, we tried that for like 1 day, monitoring our kids in middle school on Facebook. And my wife and I were like, we've just lost 3 IQ points in 1 day monitoring our kids. Who's got the time? So no, I think it's a ridiculous thing to do. And I don't recommend any employer monitoring their employees. Just, give them their assignments, give them their deliverables, what's expected of them, and then let them do what they're being paid to. Treat them like adults.
Thank you, Gene Marks.
Thank you, Loren. That was fun. We'll talk next week.
Great speaking with you. You can learn more about Gene's business at marksgroup.net. You can find Gene's writing at genemarks.com. And let us know what you think of this new podcast. You can shoot me an email at Loren, Loren, at 21hats.com, or simply by replying to your 21 Hats morning report. Have a great week, everyone.